Greetings and good morning, honorable WAP students in Ranger Country. Just going to take a moment today. I know there's been a lot of historical comparisons, and rightly so, as to what's going on with the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, so named because the Spanish media was free and fair at that time because they were a neutral country during World War I, and so they were able to cover the flu without censorship, because at the time, on both sides, Central Powers and Allied powers, trying to keep up the morale and seeing what had just happened in Russia, the Russian Revolution, which we'll touch base on next week or the week after spring break. They censored it in order to keep morale high so that people didn't totally freak out during the final days of World War I. But I'd rather make another comparison, because the easy comparison is the 1918 flu pandemic, obviously because it's a pandemic. But I thought I'd be a little bit more positive and a little bit more hopeful today and compare this to two historical events, both of which basically happened here in America. The first is Apollo 13. Apollo 13 was a mission in April of 1970. It was supposed to be a manned crew mission to the lunar surface. Jim Lovell, Jack Swigert, and Fred Hayes were on their way to the moon when there was an explosion on board, or there was a failure on board, and they had to abandon and abort their mission to the moon. They had to circle the moon and return safely to Earth. Well, it was this moment. I think the mission was like 5 days and 22 hours long, but it was like the longest at 5 days and 22 hours for those three guys and at Mission Control in Houston. And the famous words, Houston, we have a problem, was kind of this realization that this was not going to be your normal space plan. This was not going to be your normal flight, and they had to do all sorts of things. One of the things they had to do is they had to make an improvised CO2 adapter because the one on board was failing, and the guys were going to run out of breathable air. And they successfully did that. Now, the spoiler alert for those of you that are either going to want to dig into the history on it or watch the Tom Hanks movie, which interestingly enough, Tom Hanks has been in the news over this, is that they make it successfully back to Earth, and it's kind of this like successful failure. It's a successful failure. We're kind of we're kind of on Apollo 13 right now, and we need to get back to Earth, and we need to figure out how, and we need to improvise, adapt, and overcome, and we need to figure out what we need to do to get us back to Earth safely. And I see this as an Apollo 13 moment, not just statewide, not just nationally, but maybe globally. This is a global Apollo 13 moment. I also am hopeful that this is somewhat of a Sputnik moment, and that's a reference to a time period, 1957, October 4th. The Soviet Union shot a basketball-sized satellite into elliptical orbit around the Earth. It was a shallow orbit. It only lasted a few weeks, and then the batteries died, and it fell back to Earth a few weeks later, or back into the atmosphere a few weeks later. But it was this awakening moment where, and even I think my dad can remember looking up into the October sky. There's actually a movie about the aftermath of that. But the Sputnik moment in America really was an awakening for American society. And they said, man, here we are worried about, rock and roll and sock hops and kind of the afterglow and success of, American hegemony after World War II. And it was an awakening, like, oh my goodness. I mean, we can stand out on our back deck and look up into the October sky and see this satellite arching over the sky. And there was short of hysteria. There might have been a little hysteria and fear as to how far behind we were. But it also gave rise to developments in science, developments in mathematics. It forced Americans to look a little bit more closely at their leaders. It also, education was taken more seriously. There was a higher value on civics and a higher value on, like I said, science and math, and even the fine arts, right? I mean, music and art and and theater. I mean, all these things there was an increased value in education. So, maybe this is our Sputnik moment. Maybe this is our, October night sky, where we kind of see this moment as a chance to reawaken and see how we do things. And again, I've used this word a lot, is recalibrate our entire society. And so, rather than continue to compare this to the Spanish flu, I thought it'd be better to, be a little hopeful and say maybe this is our Apollo 13 moment. And obviously, my heart goes out to, the people who are fighting the coronavirus, the people who have lost their lives, the medical workers, the mailmen, the loyal carriers, and our delivery workers and our grocery workers, some of which are watching this video right now. My heart goes out to all of you. But once we're on the back side of this, I hope it's our Apollo 13 moment. I hope it's our Sputnik moment, where we move on and we move forward and we are the better for it. So that is today's lesson. I believe it's lesson 16. Losing count. But anyways, I'll see you WAP students here shortly. We're going to do a Zoom meeting, and we're going to talk about, a very riveting, mind-blowing topic, the document-based question. The document-based question, because we don't know entirely yet if that is a possibility on the upcoming exam. So we will talk about the document-based question and how to source documents and what the structure of that will look like. We'll make it real short and sweet today. So have a good day, and hope to see you WAP students at the Zoom meeting. And this is Ranger Country signing off, Brad Anderson.